9:04 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning. My name is Chris Hand. You're already shaking your head? What's wrong? Mac is in there shaking his head.
I forgot my headphones. These are a different pair. Just sounds all weird. I can't, not used to it.
You forgot your headphones?
Yeah, these are Dan's extra ones.
I didn't know the Chiefs were playing last night. Were you up late?
Doing a podcast.
Oh. Is the podcast out today?
Yeah, out today. Be released
All
today.
right. What's the name of your podcast?
Behind the Box Score.
All right. Find Mac on Twitter. What's your Twitter?
Mac J. Maury 25.
All right. Go listen to Mac's podcast after the show.
Yes. Get through this 3 hours.
After this. Do it at 7 o'clock when Levin comes up.
That's it. Exactly.
Once you've gotten through Murphy Show, Brian Wilson, and the Chris Hand Show, then you are allowed to.
That is the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Correct.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to make sure we had that clear. There was some crazy news yesterday in Arkansas. Did you hear about this? Sarah Huckabee Sanders, she's busting moves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right. So this is longer than I normally want to play. This is 2 minutes of audio, but I think it's absolutely important. And I think that what she's doing here is massive on a couple of levels, okay? Arkansas has officially become the first state in the nation to force a Chinese state-owned company to give up its American-owned land.
Whoa. That's massive.
Wild. And the implications, my friend. The implications. So I want to play this audio from Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and then we're going to break down what she says. So this is Sarah Huckabee Sanders yesterday, and this lady is just so based. You got to give me audio, Mac.
There it is.
Is that because of the new headphones?
Yeah, that's it too. Yep.
All right. Here's Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
I'm announcing that Syngenta, a Chinese state-owned agrochemical company, must give up its land holdings in Arkansas. Syngenta owns 160 acres in northeast Arkansas, which it uses primarily for seed research. The company that owns Syngenta, Kim China, is also on the Department of Defense's list of Chinese military companies posing a clear threat to our state. Seeds are technology. Chinese state-owned corporations filter that technology back to their homeland, stealing American research and telling our enemies how to target American farms. That is a clear threat to our national security and to our great farmers, especially since the Chinese government enacted a law in 2017 requiring Chinese citizens abroad to collaborate with their country's security officials on intelligence work with no questions asked. This isn't about where you're from. We welcome Chinese Americans, Russian Americans, and anyone else who's given up foreign oppression for American freedom. This is about where your loyalties lie. We simply cannot trust those who pledge allegiance to a hostile foreign power. That's why I signed Act 525, sponsored by Representative McKenzie and Senator Boyd, to ban Chinese and Russian-made drones. And it's why I signed Act 758, sponsored by Representative McAlinden and Senator Stubblefield, banning public contracts with the CCP. We will make sure that every company operating in Arkansas is a friend to Arkansas and good to hardworking Arkansans. Secretary Ward has already notified Syngenta about this decision. If they refuse to sell, our Attorney General can move forward with legal proceedings and force them to get out of our state. Arkansas will always protect our farmers and our national security interest.
This is absolutely massive stuff. Forcing China to sell the land they own. Now, there's a couple things to break down in this piece from Sarah Huckabee Sanders. One of the things that she brought up is that China could target agriculture. And so, of course, I do what I normally do. I started diving down rabbit holes. Like, how do you target agriculture? Well, there turns out there's a lot of bio warfare possibilities against agriculture. This is from the Federation of American Scientists. Most countries have bio warfare programs that develop weapons to target crops and farm animals, with the aim of denying food to the enemy, causing economic damage and sapping public morale. Now, this has been going on for a while. This isn't a new thing. During World War I, German saboteurs in the United States used anthrax and glanders to sicken more than 3,500 horses before they were shipped from U.S. ports to the British and French armies. When the animals arrived in Europe, they were unfit for wartime service. Other German sabotage operations were kind of the same way, targeting French cavalry horses, Romanian sheep, Argentinian livestock intended for the Allied forces. And then also during World War II, like a lot of this stuff that we see, it's not just the baddies doing it, right? Like our guys are doing it too. During World War II, the United States and Canada also secretly developed anti-livestock agents such as rinderpest, which is a highly lethal disease of cattle. And between 1951 and 1969, the United States also produced and stockpiled 3 anti-crop agents: stem rust of wheat, stem rust of rye, and rice blast. From the 1960s through the early 1990s, the Soviet Union's anti-agricultural warfare program, which had the ironic cover name of Ecology, employed some 10,000 people to target poultry, livestock, and crops. And then fast forward in the 80s, during the Iran-Iraq War, Saddam Hussein's Iraq developed a variety of fungal agents to attack Iran's staple of food crops. In 1985 and 1988, Iraq conducted field tests of wheat cover smut to demonstrate its effectiveness as an anti-crop agent. Iraq also produced canisters designed to disperse the fungal agent over Iranian wheat fields. There's been other incidents of anti-agricultural warfare that have been reported. 1952, Kenyan nationalists belonging to the Mau Mau movement poisoned 33 cattle at a British mission station using a local toxic plant known as African milkbush. Sri Lanka in the early 1980s, they had a group of separatists threatening to spread non-endemic plant diseases among rubber and tea plantations in a scheme to undermine the government. I mean, in the 60s, Cuba accused the United States of conducting biological attacks against humans, animals, and crops. However, those investigations proved that the accusations were unfounded. So there is a history of this. This is nothing new. It's just one of those things that it seems like nobody talks about. But Sarah Huckabee Sanders, very aware of the threat, and I think that this is a massive, massive story. She's telling them you need to get out. And if you don't, we're going to force you to get out. I mean, we know almost certainly that the virus that shut down the world came out of a Wuhan laboratory. There's some disputes on who funded that laboratory, but it came out of China. You can see from the evidence I just showed you, there are examples of agricultural terrorism and biowarfare that have been going on for decades. Decades. So I think she's ahead of the curve here. I mean, you look at where China is on the grand scheme of things: spy balloons flying over the country, backdoors into a lot of the tech stuff, Chinese police stations. Remember the Chinese police stations? We literally had Chinese police stations operating in New York City, Los Angeles, Houston, San Francisco, and Minnesota and Nebraska. That we know of. That's just that we know of.
It's terrifying.
There was Lily Tang Williams was running for a seat in New Hampshire. She was she links to China, obviously, but she would be giving speeches, and she said that she would be visited by Chinese National Police after her speeches. They're here. They're here. We see them coming over our porous border. So I like to see somebody on the offensive. And I think watching Sarah Huckabee Sanders be on the offensive is huge. Absolutely huge. Because this is an area, I'll be honest with you, I didn't think about until Sarah Huckabee said agricultural terrorism, like biowarfare. It's not something that would have even crossed my mind. But think about how that could screw us. If you're spreading diseases among livestock, you're spreading diseases among agriculture. What happens to the corn industry if all of a sudden there's a corn disease that wipes out crops? Everything would go down. Unconventional, fifth-generational warfare, you have to stay on high alert. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders in Arkansas is staying on high alert. And to that, I say amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, I know that there are some probably land owned in Tennessee by the Chinese. I know we have a lot of farmland here. What do you think about this? 615-737-9986. You are welcome to text in, call into the show. Somebody had brought up to me on Twitter that there is a battery plant. When I tweeted this last night, I said Arkansas out here making moves. And a friend on Twitter said, "Hey, Tennessee, what about the battery complex being built right on top of the precious aquifer of West Tennessee that supplies fresh water to about 7 states?" So there are land and properties here in Tennessee that cause concern. So can we step up our game? I think that we need to. And I think that Sarah Huckabee Sanders is clearly putting America first. We need more of that. We really do. You know, on the flip side, you have a governor like Kathy Hochul who is leaving America to go stand in solidarity with Israel. She's taking a trip out there. And while I think that that's all well and good to stand with Israel, you weren't elected by Israel. You were elected to run your own state. And I think the contrast between those two governors couldn't be more apparent. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is putting America first. Kathy Hochul in New York is putting illegal immigrants first. You know, even though she's changed her tune lately to say, sorry, guys, we're full. She's leaving her state to go stand in solidarity with another country. She's not serving the people that voted her in. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is. So I know Bill Lee's not going to be able to run for another term, obviously. But I think when we get to that next election, it's going to be something to ask. What are you going to do for America First policies? How are you going to stand against China buying land? What are you going to do to protect the people of Tennessee first? Because there are governors out there doing the right thing. Sarah Huckabee Sanders proves it. Oh, if somebody's grilling me, 9944. In America, it's pronounced aquifer. Aquifer. What did I say? Did I say aquifer?
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow. All right, my bad.
You get the point.
Thanks, 9944. Like, yeah, Sarah Huckabee Sanders did something good, but you mispronounced the word, idiot. 4978 says there's another battery plant being built in Shelbyville. 0882, China Joe won't allow anyone to oppose anything against China. And that's why we need to make sure more than ever that we're electing these officials that do represent our interests. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is absolutely stepping up.
John 2174 says she could be Trump's VP.
I wouldn't mind that. But I think she's doing more good as governor of Arkansas right now than she could as VP. I mean, what did Nancy Pelosi say? She's like, oh, Kamala Harris doesn't do anything, but that's the job.
That's the job.
That's the job.
It's crazy.
So I would much rather her be setting the example for other governors in Arkansas than going and doing nothing as VP, because that's the job. Scott texted and he said there's land in Hickman County posted no trespassing in English and Chinese. That's a clue. Found a clue. 0324. To the Chinese crop manipulation tactics, get the bleep out and don't let the door hit your bleep on the way out. I like it.
Bingo.
I think that's something we can all get behind. 6929, there's a battery plant being built in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee.
Dang.
6024, 15% of the farmland in Missouri is owned by China.
Yeah, I'm going to fact check that.
Fact check that. 6288 texted in, he said, I feel like we are currently victims of this agricultural terrorism. Look at our skies daily. Crazy. Yeah. Don't look up. 3455. Is that what the balloon was for? Land surveying? Maybe. 4269 with a great point. Our governors in red states may be what has to save this nation. Maybe. Brad texted in, he says, aquifer, a Canadian term. Thanks, Brad. You know, there was other audio from the guy running against, what's his name, the mayor of Canada, Justin Trudeau. And it's pretty funny audio. And I know everybody makes fun of me, calls me Canadian. But there's this pretty funny audio. Pierre Olivier, I think his name is, just roasting a reporter for asking him all sorts of silly questions. And I was thinking about playing it for you guys, but I was like, no, everybody's just going to be like, no, yeah, you're definitely Canadian. So I, I made a programming decision to not be called Canadian, and we're not 20 minutes into the show, and I'm already being called Canadian.
That's how impactful this is.
If I was Canadian, I'd be fine with China owning land. As you can see, in Canada, that happens all the time. You guys are hilarious.
So there's 100,000 agricultural acres owned by all foreign entities in Missouri, and 42,000 of those acres are owned by China. I don't know percentage-wise what that looks like, but
You said 100,000 owned by other entities, 42,000
is owned by China.
So that'd be 42%.
Well, but that's of the foreign-owned entities. There's 100,000 acres. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of other land there that is not owned by foreign entities.
But of the foreign-owned land, 42%
is China. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Just making sure.
It's just
42% of the land is not China.
We're just out here doing napkin math. Sorry. It is 9:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 6447 said, play the Canadian clip. I laughed my butt off yesterday when I watched it on YouTube. All right. We'll play the Canadian clip next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, it's Chris Hand from my friends at USS United Structural Systems. I am so excited. I'm officially on the schedule to get my crawl space encapsulated. Now, I've heard these guys' commercials on Super Talk for years, and when I got to meet them, one of the things they told me about their industry and what they do with crawl spaces and structural supports and foundation repair for your home, that it's one of those industries where you don't know you need it until you know you need it. And after we had a critter in my crawl space, I poked my head down there after not being down there for quite a while. And I realized, boy, I need the guys at USS. So I called them. They came over. They made a custom plan for me and my home. And now I'm on the schedule, eagerly awaiting full encapsulation of my crawl space. It's going to look so nice and neat down there that my kids have even asked if they could use it as a clubhouse, to which I said, probably not. You probably can't use it as a clubhouse. But that's how nice it's going to be. Now, listen, if you're noticing water in your crawl space, wet basement floors, cracks in your wet basement walls, cracks in your basement floors, that's your house trying to tell you something, and the guys at USS can help you figure out what. So give USS a call today to check it out. 615-488-7855, 615-488-7855, or everything you need to know online, USSTN.com.
Lots of stuff getting in the way out there as far as traffic is concerned. We've got an injury crash on Bell Road northbound at Elm Hill Pike, and then 140 eastbound after McCrory Lane in Pegram. And then in Madison, you got a crash. The off-ramp left lane is blocked. That's from 65 southbound to Ellington Parkway. And we'll let you hear what President Biden just said in Israel, coming up at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. We'll go to Israel during the newscast. Right now, we move north of the border, Canada. One of the funniest clips that you may see, I told you I'd play it for you. Pierre Poilievre. Probably butchering that. See, not Canadian. But he's dealing with a liberal activist journalist while munching on an apple, and he just absolutely roasts this guy.
On the topic, I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well, appealing to people's more emotional levels, I would guess. I mean,
What do you mean by that?
certainly you tap very strong ideological language quite frequently.
Like what?
Left wing, this and that, right wing. I mean, it's that type of ideological spectrum.
I never really talk about left
But
or right.
anyways,
I don't really believe in that.
Okay. A lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Well, I'm sure a great many Canadians, but
Like who?
I don't know who, but...
Well, you're the one who asked the question, so
yeah.
you must know somebody.
Okay. I'm sure there's some out there, but anyways, the point of this question is, I mean, why should Canadians trust you with their vote, given, not just the sort of ideological inclination in terms of taking the page out of Donald Trump's book, but
what are you
also,
talking about? What page? What page? Can you give me a page? Give me the page. You keep saying
in terms of turning things quite dramatically in terms of Trudeau and the left wing and all of this. I mean, you make quite a it's quite a play that you make on it. So I'm
not
just
sure.
wondering.
I don't know what your question is.
Then forget that. Why should Canadians trust you with their vote?
Common sense.
Okay.
Common sense for a change. We're going to make common sense common in this country. We don't have any common sense in the current government. The guy prints $600 billion, grows our money supply by 32% in 3 years. That's growing the money 8 times faster than the economy. No wonder we have the worst inflation in 4 decades. I'm going to cap spending, cut waste, so that we can balance the budget and bring down inflation and interest rates. You'll want to be able to pay your mortgage again? You want to be able to afford rent? Then you have to vote for Pierre Poilievre, because I'm the only one with a common sense plan that will bring back the buying power of your paycheck.
That was Pierre Poilievre. I'm butchering it again. Ken Weaver's got the news right now on Super Talk.
"9:30 on the dot this Wednesday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. President Biden's in Israel just delivered a message.
My message to any state or any other hostile actor thinking about attacking Israel remains the same as it was a week ago. Don't.
Biden also announcing $100 billion, rather $100 million worth of humanitarian aid in both Israel and Gaza. Elsewhere in Middle Tennessee, TBI has taken over the investigation of a house fire in Millersville. Channel 4's Ryan Breslin says 2 children were found dead in the fire, for which the first calls came in around 1:30 this morning.
We know that multiple fire crews from both Robertson County and Sumner County were out here at this home off of Highway 31 West. They worked for about 1 hour to get this fire under control. They actually said it only took about 10 minutes, though, to really bring those flames down.
TBI has a K9 they're using, which can detect whether accelerant was used to start a fire. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country and you could buy that widget in that country for one clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens now, this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com, and we'll walk you through what we do and see if we can be of help to you, the investor out there that is so often being sold things that they really don't need to be buying.
Does the dysfunction that we've seen in Congress increase the danger in the world?
Yes. Look, this is not your father's Republican Party.
And to that I say amen. 938 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Yes, there is dysfunction in the Republican Party. There is. Speaker of the House, Jim Jordan, 20 no votes yesterday. 20 no votes. Yikes. Our friend of the show, Andy Ogles, was on with Dan Mandis this morning, and he said that he expects the number to increase.
Wow.
He said, we're going to get more no's.
It never ends.
Well, how many rounds do you think it's going to go?
I mean, dude. I mean, at this rate, then this will be the third today or the second?
It'll be the second today.
I mean, then it looks like we've got at least 2 or 3 more. We're going to get more no's in the second.
Do you think we're going to, yeah, if we get more no's, obviously we'll get round 3. Do you think we're going to go 15 rounds again like we did with McCarthy?
Gosh. Man, I hope not. But at this rate, why not? I mean, it doesn't seem like progress is actually being made.
Well, the only progress that people want us to make is either progress towards leftism or progress towards more war. It's like we're only allowed to either vote for neocon Republicans or hard left radicals. So it's exciting. I'm excited. So 20 no votes. I mean, there's a few in there that are interesting. Ones that aren't surprising. Like, so we got, let's see. Carlos Jimenez out of Florida. Is that how you pronounce it? Jimenez?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. This guy voted for Hillary Clinton. So he's
super dope.
Super dope. He's also a member of the Armed Services, Homeland Security, and Select Committee on China. So he's a military-industrial complex guy. Weird. Isn't that weird? So weird.
So weird.
What a coincidence. But this is what he says. This is what he says, right? This is why he's not going to vote for Jim Jordan. This is him. I think he was on CNN or one of those BS news networks, which is really like all of them. Pretty much all of them. But anyway, here's Carlos Jimenez.
Do you see any way that you would change your position, change your vote?
In the future, yeah, but I'm not, right now I'm not changing my position. And I think that Jim Jordan's tactics of pressure and intimidation and misinformation, I'm not saying that he did it, but his supporters surely has not helped Jim Jordan.
Oh, the tactics of misinformation and intimidation have not helped Jim Jordan. How quickly these people forget that McCarthy's people were DMing memers on Twitter to go against Gates and offering them money for it. But Jim Jordan is accused of intimidation and misinformation. Maybe Jim Jordan isn't Carlos Jimenez's guy because he doesn't want to vote for Democrats and he doesn't want to keep funding war. I don't know. Maybe that's a conspiracy theory. I don't want to have too much tinfoil on my hat. You know what I mean? There were other guys on the list that just shocking names. Ken Buck out of Colorado, Republican Ken Buck. He didn't vote for him. But we knew that would happen. Ken Buck is angling for a job on CNN. He's like the new Adam Kinzinger. That's what he's doing. CNN asked him about his vote for Speaker of the House.
He did not vote for Congressman Jim Jordan, instead voting for Tom Emmer. Well, I guess my first question is, do you really want Tom Emmer to be Speaker?
No, I don't. I don't like Tom Emmer. I figured this would be the worst job in America. Mike Rowe would not want to do this for his TV show. This is a terrible job.
Okay, so just to underscore that, you voted for somebody because you don't like them.
I voted for somebody because I wasn't going to vote for Jim Jordan.
Oh, that's a radical take. Well, you see, it's a lousy job, so I just decided to vote for somebody I don't like. Oh, all right. Thanks, Ken.
Mike Rowe would kill it, by the way.
Mike Rowe would
be awesome.
Talk about a guy that could drain the swamp.
Come on.
Yeah, I've seen him unclog many of drains.
I was going to say, that's
jobs.
That's a good idea.
I don't mind it. But even the CNN host is like, you voted for him because you don't like him?
You voted for somebody because you don't like them.
I voted for somebody because I wasn't going to vote for Jim Jordan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's what you did. That's what you did. You voted for him because you didn't like him. Okay. Yeah. This is the Republican Party. This is when people say rhinos, that we're talking about Jimenez and Buck. They're absolute rhinos. Now, yesterday, if you remember, before the House vote, Matt Gaetz was pretty excited, and he brought up a lot of good points.
Right now, I'm very excited about Speaker-designate Jim Jordan. The opposition to Jim Jordan has dwindled down to the single digits. And if we are able to convince just a few more colleagues to go with the rest of the Republican Congress in getting Jim Jordan the speakership, I don't think there'll be a single viewer of Greg Kelly Reports who doesn't appreciate the upgrade that we made at the position of Speaker of the House.
Now, it wasn't just single-digit people that weren't supporting. I mean, 20 is a little bit different than single digits. However, I'm still looking forward to an upgrade on Speaker of the House. Are you still looking forward to an upgrade on Speaker of the House? Matt Gaetz highlights some of the upgrades that we could see.
I think you're going to see it right away in our oversight work. Subpoenas that were bottled up are going to get out the door. I think we're going to be able to finally get a subpoena to Hunter Biden. And my hope is that we'll be able to put some downward pressure on all of this spending. I just saw a report today that we had tens of thousands of Americans just this past month go into bankruptcy, up 18% from a year ago. Bidenomics isn't working for people, and the House of Representatives is the only institution in our federal government that people can place any hope in when you look at the Schumer-controlled Senate and an administration spending more money, more weaponized against our fellow Americans. So Jim Jordan will be a great and inspiring leader. We got a little more work to do, but we feel like we got the wind at our back.
Well, it seems like the wind isn't really at the back anymore. Like I said, friend of the show, Andy Ogles, was on with Dan Mandis this morning. Says he's expecting more no votes today than they had yesterday. But some of what Matt Gaetz says is exciting. Getting a subpoena out to Hunter Biden, maybe pushing through the impeachment. Can we make some moves? I would like to make some moves. And to the 20 people holding out, like, get with it or get primaried at this point. We were joking with Matt Murphy yesterday. Said, it's going to be a mess. Got to give Jim Jordan some time if he does get in there. Nothing's going to get fixed right away. So I'm going to give him a day before I start judging him. I am growing very impatient of the current Republican Party. I played the clip coming into the break. Joe Biden. He says,
this is not your father's Republican Party.
And he's right. I think the Republican Party is changing. But there are those old guys, those neocon warmongers that are just hanging on for dear life. It's like the cartoon when you see the nails just scratching and you see the nail marks. That's what these guys are doing. They are clinging on for dear life. The party is moving past them. And it's time to get with the new movement or leave. Like, America first. The new movement of the Republican Party are people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governors like that. We need the Matt Gaetz of the world. We need the Byron Donalds of the world. Disagreements aside, we need guys like Andy Ogles who are going to get in there and have those fights. And I say disagreements aside because, obviously, I called Andy on not voting to make McCarthy vacate. But he's done good things. We need Andy, just like we need Jim Jordan as Speaker of the House, just like we need Matt Gaetz doing what Matt Gaetz does. We need the new blood in the Republican Party to take control. These other guys, these Ken Bucks of the world, the Carlos Jimenez, they're just using their office to get rich and enrich their buddies. And I'm tired of the way the Republican Party is going. And if you're wondering if Jim Jordan is or isn't the right guy for the job, let me just say what Nancy Pelosi thinks of Jim Jordan. She was on with Joy Reid, and she said Jordan as Speaker would be appalling because our democracy is at stake. That's a hell of an endorsement, if you ask me. If Nancy Pelosi is telling me that someone would be appalling as Speaker of the House, I'm like, that's my guy. That's who I want. Pelosi said these House Republicans they didn't have any interest in the peaceful transfer of power. They were in denial about the election. And for all of the horror of that day, the violence, the desecration of the Capitol, this temple of democracy in the world, the violation of our Constitution, to have that day on the acceptance of the Electoral College vote, the whole thing, the assault on our democracy. After we went back to the Capitol, took the vote overwhelmingly, the Republicans voted against accepting the results of the Electoral College. This person that they're putting forth to be Speaker of the House is just appalling. Oh, leave it to Nancy Pelosi to bring up January 6th when nobody asked her about January 6th. And she continued. Mr. Jordan and his friends do a real disservice to their members on the Republican side to call upon them once, maybe more, we'll see tomorrow, to vote for such a person for Speaker. They're going to have to answer to their conscience, to their children, to their own legacy for doing something so disreputable. This is the same woman, my friends, that tore up the State of the Union speech behind Donald Trump. And she's talking about doing something so disreputable. Nancy Pelosi lecturing us. The same Nancy Pelosi that shut down hair salons and pushed those COVID tyrannical policies and went and got her hair cut without a mask. That Nancy Pelosi. The brag about ice cream on Twitter, Nancy Pelosi. She added, this person they're nominating, Jim Jordan, doesn't have any legislation, never passed legislation. His big bill is to criminalize a woman's right to choose with no exceptions, the harshest possible position. Again, not accepting the results of the election, but voting. Again, you see these people voting for him when he voted again disaster assistance when fires came to the area with storms and hurricanes. That's why you see some people voting against him from New York. But there are many others voting against the interests of their constituents because you know why? The instigator of the insurrection, Donald Trump, has asked them to. Ooh, yeah, nailed it. Got January 6th in there and got an orange man bad before the segment came to a close. Thank you, Nancy Pelosi. Again, if Nancy Pelosi says he's not a good choice, I'm over here like, yeah, that's my guy. That's him.
Yep, got it.
Yep.
One more.
Say no more. And then she said, wait, you see these people voting against the interest of their constituents. Why are you voting against the interest of your constituents? I'm assuming she's talking about the Rhino Republicans in that 20. Garbage. But again, Pelosi concluded, the public has to understand what is at stake. You want to know what's at stake? Our democracy is at stake. Thank you, Nancy. If I had to vote, I'd vote for Jim. We should be lighting the phones up in D.C., calling them nonstop and letting them know, let's get this thing done and get Jim Jordan in there. Hopefully, we can get it done today. Fingers crossed. Oh, and there's another guy. While Congress doesn't work, there's one senator who is actually proposing that they work more. I'll tell you about that story after the break right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
What a ridiculous clown show.
Israel-Hamas war update. President Biden has delivered another address since arriving in Israel. We'll let you hear some of that. Also, an update on the, not Tennessee, but the U.S. House Speaker's race. Still got a crash. It's blocking the right lane of 40 westbound before you get to the airport. Top stories coming up at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. I told you a minute ago I'm going to tell you about a Republican senator who wants the government to work more. Senator James Lankford out of Oklahoma is reintroducing a plan to end government shutdowns for good by making lawmakers work 7 days a week until spending bills are passed.
Woo!
Can we do this?
Come on.
It's never going to make it.
It's so annoying.
It's going to be shut down so fast. But he said it's real simple. If you haven't gotten your classwork done, you got to stay after class to be able to finish it before you go home. The bill would trigger 2-week stopgap spending bills and force Congress to stay in town and focus only on spending. It's Lankford led the bill, Republican out of Oklahoma, and it's actually also with New Hampshire Democrat Senator Maggie Hassan.
Yeah, there's a lot of people working 7 days a week because of this economy. So maybe you could try it once and figure it out.
No, and even like the Speaker of the House stuff, they leave for like 4 days. Oh, we didn't get a speaker. You know what? We'll be back.
We'll be back. Yeah. Little intermission.
This is what they all do. Joe Biden's in Israel. We're not going to see him at a public appearance until November after this. Did you hear his audio?
Heard a little bit of it.
So sleepy.
So sleepy.
So sleepy. I feel bad for the guy.
Surprised. He talked for like 10 minutes. I was like, wow, buddy.
He rambled for 10 minutes.
Yes, that's a better way to say it.
He rambled and sort of stuck to his pre-planned remarks. It's 10 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the latest headlines for you right now.
Ten o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. And right now, the Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage.
President Biden delivering remarks in Tel Aviv showing continued support for Israel amid its war with Hamas.
Hamas committed atrocities that recall the worst ravages of ISIS, unleashing pure, unadulterated evil upon the world. There's no rationalizing it, no excusing it.
The president says the U.S. has been by Israel's side since the country's founding 75 years ago and will continue to be. President Biden also citing the Holocaust during remarks made minutes ago.
The world watched then, it knew, and the world did nothing. We will not stand by and do nothing again. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
His scheduled meetings with Arab leaders on this trip, which were to be held in Jordan, have been canceled following that blast at a Gaza hospital. Gaza blames Israeli airstrikes for the blast. Israel says it was caused by a misfired rocket from Islamic Jihad.
And as that war rages in Israel and Gaza, tensions are rising here at home. Students carrying Palestinian banners at a rally in Texas say they hide their identities out of fear of their names, their schools, phone numbers, addresses being put online. Right now in our nation's capital, the speaker's race continues. Having lost the votes of 20 Republicans yesterday, Jim Jordan vows he'll keep trying. Jordan supporter, Tennessee 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles tells WTN's Nashville's Morning News.
I think the number will actually grow today. I think there's probably going to be somewhere between, say 26 and 32, so maybe 28 no votes for Jim Jordan.
Meanwhile, top Democrat Hakeem Jeffries said some Republicans have been reaching across the aisle to see about a compromise to get the House back in business. One option is a bipartisan agreement to give Speaker pro tempore Patrick McHenry of North Carolina more authority for now. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
You should be planning for your financial future the same way with the same passion that Joe Biden plans for his next nap. Hey, it's Chris Hand for Paul Winkler Inc. Listen, I'm a husband. I got 4 wonderful kids, and financial stability in the future is a huge priority to me. Now, my wife and I didn't have a plan, but we got linked up with Paul and his team, and now we do. And because Paul and his team hold themselves to a higher level of fiduciary standard than is required, I tell you that I'm paid every time this commercial airs, and that's the truth. But it wasn't because I'm getting paid that I decided to become a client. I decided to become a client myself because I'm impressed with Paul and his team. Paul knows the financial world better than I do, and he can explain it to a guy like me so that way I can understand. Plus, nothing his team does is on commission. They're big on education, but that commission part is so huge because I know when they're helping me make decisions for my family, they're doing just that, helping me make decisions for my family, not theirs, because nothing's done on commission. The investment education they provide is evidence-based and backed by Nobel Prize-winning research. They will help you learn about the decisions that you're making, so you should check them out. Every office is run by a degree planner with over 20 years of experience. You can feel the difference between Paul's team and the rest, so do what I did. Talk to one of them today. Set up a complimentary 15-minute phone call right now at his website, paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com. Or call 615-851-1950. .05 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Mac Morey's producing. Ken Weaver in the newsroom. And you joining us on the phone lines and the text line, 615-737-9986. We're just having fun while the world burns, I guess. It's been crazy these past couple weeks. The news cycle has been nonstop. And it just seems like it's only getting faster as we go along. Last night was wild. Absolutely wild. Like I couldn't help but think, you know, as you're watching everything go down, that it's like we were witnessing, you know, 10 Benghazis and Iran hostages all at once. U.S. and other Western embassies, Israeli embassies were being all run over. Fires being lit last night. People chanting death to America. I mean, it was happening all over the Middle East. Jordan, Iraq, Yemen, Lebanon, Turkey. The list goes on. This is what some of the action sounded like outside during these protests. I mean, this is Iran. U.S. Embassy in Beirut. Fires being lit. Fences being pushed. Some of the protesters, they were even firing tear gas to disperse the crowds. And I'm watching this all happen on Twitter Live, and, you know, I kept having visions of Hillary Clinton dancing in my head.
The fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
That kept playing over in my head over and over and over again. And meanwhile, as this stuff is happening, we see Joe Biden taking the short stairs to get on Air Force One once again. And as he's en route to the Middle East to meet with Middle Eastern leaders, Jordan cancels the summit with King Abdullah. Egyptian President Sisi, Palestinian President Abbas, they are all out. They're not meeting with Joe Biden. Can you blame them? And this is as Joe Biden says he's going to calm the tensions in the Middle East. He's gonna calm everybody down. Do you feel calm yet? It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Then there's a hospital bombed in Gaza. Who bombed the hospital? Who bombed the hospital? 500 dead. Originally, reports were saying it was Israel. And I even saw a tweet floating around. I still tweets that. Anyway, I saw a tweet floating around that people are claiming was an IDF spokesperson who said, tweeted out that it was Israel that launched the missile, then quickly deleted it. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't. They said Israeli Air Force struck a terrorist base inside a hospital in Gaza. Then they deleted the tweet. Then they put out a new tweet. From our analysis with video proof, it was a Hamas rocket that misfired and hit the hospital. I don't know what to believe. I mean, I lean towards the fact that it was probably Hamas. That's where I want to lean. But I think that the important thing to point out is that the fog of war right now is so foggy and the misinformation is so thick that both sides are going to be blaming each other. And no matter what evidence comes out, neither side will believe the other one. And again, it's because of the amount of disinfo and propaganda that's surrounded every single aspect of the terrorist attack and subsequent war that has led to all of this distrust. So no matter what you got, both sides are going to say the other side's lying. And both sides won't believe the other if they were telling the truth. It's a crazy time to be alive. The New York Times reported on it. And the New York Times, the failing New York Times, they didn't think that anybody would notice this. Their first headline says, Israeli strike kills hundreds in hospital, Palestinians say. That was their first headline. Then they quickly edited it. At least 500 dead in strike on Gaza hospital, Palestinians say. Well, then they quickly edited that one. And the one they left up now is at least 500 dead in blast at Gaza hospital. It's how quick this information war is just changing. It is fascinating to watch. Absolutely fascinating. Also, at the same time, Hezbollah is getting into the mix, and they called for a day of rage, and that's probably why we're seeing a lot of the passion and protests at these embassies, along with the hospital explosion, blast, strike, whatever side is calling it at this moment. You had a lot of death, a lot of innocents killed. Hezbollah calls for a day of rage. Day of anger, day of unprecedented anger, day of rage. And they're saying it's also against Biden's visit to Israel. Unbelievable stuff. So where does it go from here? Well, I think it's important to ask, what is this day of rage? And, what is it? What is the day of rage? That's the first question.
A day of unprecedented anger. I mean, you're there in the heart of this. You've given us some amazing reports already. What should we be bracing for?
Well, this is all centered around that whatever happened at that hospital. We don't know if it was from the Islamic Jihad side or if it was the Israeli side. Both sides are pointing fingers at the other, but the Israelis say they've got data to back up what they are saying.
So the Israelis say they have data to back up what they're saying. The Palestinians will say that the Israelis are lying. Finger pointing, right? There's nothing that's going to happen in this conflict that isn't going to have the other side screaming, you're lying. Period. But John Roberts is in Israel. He's talking about what this day of rage could look like, and he talks about the conflict on the northern border of Israel.
For the last 10 days, Hezbollah has been harassing the Israeli military, Israeli civilians in the northern part of the country. If they are declaring a day of rage tomorrow, probably in response to this hospital, we could expect that those cross-border attacks will continue. Now, that whole area along the northern border from Metula up at the tip of the Galilee Peninsula to Nahariya over on the coast has been evacuated along a 2-kilometer border. So there won't be that many people in the line of fire unless Hezbollah decides to go for its inventory of rockets, which then would escalate this to a level that it hasn't been so far.
Oh, escalation, exactly the word everybody's looking for. More escalation. Didn't Biden say he was going to go calm tensions during this visit? I mean, wheels hadn't even hit the ground, and they're already worried about escalation. Nailed it. President Joe just nailed it. Already calming tensions. But how will this day of rage affect the visit?
But this is going to present an enormous challenge for President Biden, because he's coming here to talk to Benjamin Netanyahu tomorrow about the way forward. He wanted to get a read from Israel on what the aims and the strategy were for the ground operation in a way that will, to the best of Israel's ability, limit the potential for civilian casualties. And then he was going to go on to Amman, Jordan, to talk with King Abdullah, President al-Sisi of Egypt, and Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian organization. And we were kind of reading the tea leaves, Charles, to think, is that meeting to discuss a potential way forward in Gaza after Hamas is gone? But now Mahmoud Abbas is saying, as a result of what happened at this hospital, that he is not going to that meeting. So that really is going to put a monkey wrench into what President Biden was attempting to do tomorrow and the day after.
Yeah, and what he was attempting to do is calm tensions. And, the other leaders said, yeah, we're going to pass. But, reading from a teleprompter earlier, Biden did have, a message to Iran and other hostile actors. You may have seen this one before.
And my message to any state or any other hostile actor thinking about attacking Israel remains the same as it was a week ago. Don't.
I don't know if that's the same. He said don't 4 times a week ago. So it's a little different. He also said he's making wartime decisions.
I've made wartime decisions. I know the choices are never clear or easy for the leadership. There's always cost.
Okay. Shouldn't we get Congress to declare war before we start making wartime decisions? It's just crazy. It's embarrassing, Joe Biden being the guy representing us on this stage. He did announce $100 million of funding for humanitarian purposes, much like the billions they gave to Iran. It's for humanitarian purposes.
Today, I'm also announcing $100 million in new U.S. funding for humanitarian assistance in both Gaza and the West Bank.
Now, despite what you may think about what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank, $100 million of new U.S. funding for humanitarian assistance, that really frustrates me, guys. Have you seen Philadelphia lately? Have you seen the amount of homeless veterans that we have? Have you seen the drug-addicted scourge of young people? Have you seen the tent cities in all of our blue cities? But we can have $100 million of humanitarian assistance for Gaza and the West Bank? This man is anything but America first. He does not care about the citizens of our country at all. At all. $100 million of new U.S. funding for humanitarian assistance in both Gaza and the West Bank. What about the problems we have here at home? Since this thing kicked off, I've said I don't want to be involved. I don't want us to fund either side of the war, and I also don't want more war. I don't. Yeah, I get called Neville Chamberlain on the super text line nonstop because of this.
Pacifist.
Yeah, I'm a pacifist. I'm a Canadian pacifist. So I get called that all the time. But I mean, I just think that if we're going to drum up $100 million for humanitarian assistance, let's start in America. Have you been to Detroit lately? Looks like a third world country. Can we help out our own first?
Philly.
I mean, let's go down the list. San Francisco.
Yikes.
I mean, Nancy Pelosi said, we were talking about what Nancy Pelosi was saying about Jim Jordan earlier. Said, he's appalling to our democracy. Nancy, San Francisco is appalling to the country. Used to be one of the most beautiful cities in the country. Now there's like designated pooping streets and tent cities everywhere. Rampant crime. Can we have some humanitarian assistance for the people that need help in our country first? Really frustrating. And when he does meet with Netanyahu and he's talking about what happened, he seems sleepy, he seems lost, and he references Israel's enemies while sitting there with Benjamin Netanyahu as the other team.
But the point is this, that I was deeply saddened and outraged by the explosion at the hospital in Gaza yesterday. And based on what I've seen, it appears as though it was done by the other team, not you. But there's a lot of people out there not sure. So we've got to overcome a lot of things.
The other team. Like, come on. Does he sound presidential at all? Does he sound like a beacon of strength? I mean, I know he told everybody don't, but do you think he's striking fear into any of our enemies in the region?
Hey.
Don't.
All right, I'll give him a break. It was a long flight. The man's sleepy. I mean, but listen to him talking with sitting down next to Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel, who just probably is just annoyed that he even has to meet with Joe Biden, that he has to do the dance for the funding. But, Benjamin Netanyahu put on a brave face having to deal with Joe Biden.
You know, years ago, I asked the Secretary of State when he and I were working in the Senate to write something for a man. He said, he wrote a line that I think is appropriate. He said, it's not, we lead, not just, well, I won't go into it. I'll wait later.
Deep thoughts with Joe Biden.
Oh, gosh.
I won't go into it. I'll wait till later.
Taking too much time.
Yeah, taking too much time. We should save that. Taking too much time. Put that on the hot keyboard. If I start going over, you can just say
yes.
Just say
not just well, I won't go into it. I'll wait later. Taking too much time.
It's 10:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. Find me on Twitter, Truth Social, Instagram, at Chris Hand on air. Hit the follow button. I will follow back. Taking your calls and texts next at 615-737-9986. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Got a crash getting in the way. 24 westbound right there at Briley Parkway South. The right lane is blocked there in Glencliff. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Just saw a breaking news alert that Israel will allow humanitarian aid into Gaza from Egypt. Meanwhile, President Biden floating another $100 billion aid package. U.S. House Speaker's race, a prediction from Tennessee, 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
$1 million. Sorry. $100 billion.
That's the new aid package. That's how they announce it.
Yeah.
10:25 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Mac is like, where's he going with this? All right. Just having fun.
It was great.
I had that
Nailed
saved.
it.
I had that saved for no reason at all. Angie in Springfield, you've been waiting on the line. You have a comment on Israeli visas. Angie, you're on Super Talk. What's up?
I was just going to let you know that the Biden administration on September 27th passed where Israel can now come to the United States, or Israelis can come to the United States effective as of November 30th without a visa. So they're part of the visa waiver program. I just wondered is that a coincidence that it happened like weeks before all of this went down?
I don't know. I don't really believe in coincidences myself, but I don't want to. I feel like I have too much tinfoil on my hat already to load up anymore. I'll be top heavy at this point. But I mean, it's definitely interesting, and I guess it's for 90 days. So it starts November 30th and then goes for 90 days. I put Mac on the fact check on this. Right? It goes for 90 days?
Israelis will be able to travel to the United States for business or leisure purposes for up to 90 days without a visa simply by registering with the electronic system for travel authorization.
And
Let me tell you what happens after 90 days. And after 90 days, then they file for asylum because they can't go back to their country, and then they're here forever. That's what happens.
And then they'll probably vote blue no matter who.
Of course.
I appreciate the call, Angie. Thank you so much. And more of your calls on Super Talk at 615-737-9986. I did get some texts that I thought were interesting. 5581 said, Chris, I never thought I'd be saying this, but I'd rather have Barack Obama on the world stage representing America compared to this old fart.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, it's not even a hot take.
Just saying. I mean, come on, man.
I think at a certain point, Kamala Harris is better. That's a spicy take.
That's where it gets spicy. Exactly.
That's Pepper X take.
That's Pepper X. I do. I don't know, guys.
Pepper X.
I mean, at least Kamala wouldn't be falling asleep. You know, she could take a long flight and be unburdened by what has been and just deal with what's in front of her. You know what I mean? She would.
She could take the big stairs.
She could take the big stairs with heels on. Best female vice president we ever had. And then if she get into these tough things about humanitarian aid versus military funding, she could do a Venn diagram. Figure that thing out. She could. She could.
It's crazy because third in line for the presidency is the Speaker of the House, correct? There is none. So third in line right now would be Antony Blinken. Woo!
World-class diplomat Antony Blinken. 9966 says, I'd take Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah. I got a first-time texter, 4357, says, that clip of Biden saying, don't, reminds me of my ex-husband when he was an unarmed security guard. I asked him, what authority do you really have? And he says, I shout stop. And I asked him if they don't. He says, stop, or I'll say stop again. It's real scary.
I'm frightened.
That's pretty much the equivalence of Joe Biden's don't. Jeez. 5829 says, people are losing their houses because they can't afford them, and he's still giving millions and billions away. Yeah, but it's for humanitarian purposes, guys. Definitely won't fall into the hands of terrorists or anything like that. So don't even worry about it. The trick is, if he says it's for humanitarian purposes, and then we just don't ask any questions, then everything works out. So we don't ask any questions. And to Jason on the super text line, it's very inappropriate.
Oh my gosh, Jason.
Jason's talking about what Kamala Harris has really been unburdened by. And we can't say that on the air, Jason. You know that we can't say that. 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the news.
$10:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Got the full forecast in 2 minutes. Right now, the Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Karen Travers says President Biden and Israel announced more help is on the way.
We are told that this will be part of a larger aid package that they want Congress to approve, maybe about $100 billion. $10 billion of that would likely go to Israel. The bulk of it would go to Ukraine. A lot of chaos still on Capitol Hill. Not clear how quickly they could actually get that through and to his desk for his signature.
Speaking of Capitol Hill, Tennessee 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles tells WTN's Nashville's Morning News his prediction for Jim Jordan in the speaker's race.
I'll predict today that the number will be 28 no votes. My guess is we vote once, maybe twice. We might vote later tonight, but then we'll come back again tomorrow and revote. But I'm going to predict 28 no votes. But I'm saying Jim Jordan's in this for the long haul. He's a fighter, and ultimately, I think he'll be a uniter.
That is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year, the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country and you could buy that widget in that country for one clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens, now this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com, paulwinkler.com, and we'll walk you through what we do and see if we can be of help to you, the investor out there that is so often being sold things that they really don't need to be buying.
Hey, it's Chris Hanford, Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling. The weather has been up and down. We're kicking on the heat in the morning. We're turning on the AC in the afternoon. Well, if you're noticing one of those aren't working, it's time to call an HVAC guy. And if you don't have an HVAC guy you trust, I got one for you. Jeff Eddy with Efficient Heating and Cooling. I know it can be so hard to find somebody you trust with these large home repairs, and that doesn't exclude heating and cooling. It's a big cost to replace a unit. Find somebody you trust. Jeff Eddy's Efficient Heating and Cooling. They're a small company with big service and big results. I trust Jeff and his crew to do what's right because they prove it time and time again. Jeff's a good guy, family guy, built this company from the ground up, and he's got honest Christian values. If you're trying to make that decision to repair or replace your system, call Jeff and his crew to take a look at it. Now, if you call the other guys or if you've already called the other guys, you may find them pressuring you to replace your whole system because they make more money that way. Jeff and his team, they don't want to pressure you. They just want to help you make an informed decision. And if that means replacing a part instead of replacing the entire unit, they'll help you figure that out. Plus, if you do need to replace the unit, Efficient offers up to 18 months, same as cash financing on that next unit. They're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and an Elite Pro partner with Rheem. Go to efficienthvac.net or call 615-784-4424. $10:36 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Is it 59 degrees out? All right. Sunny.
Yeah.
It's the time of the year where Tennessee shows off.
Love it.
Me too. Fantastic. There's been a lot of debate going back and forth about who is going to take the refugees that are displaced in Gaza. Everybody's talking about it. Who's going to do it? Somebody's got to do it. Middle Eastern nations are like, nah, hard pass. American citizens are like, yeah, probably not here. But in the midst of all this, you guys, an unlikely contender has emerged. Do you know who's emerged as the unlikely contender?
Who?
Yeah, just throw out a country. Give me your best guess as what country may take these refugees.
Your homeland, Canada. No, I'm just kidding.
They probably would if they asked nicely.
If they asked
nicely enough and they brought some Tim Hortons, they'd probably take it.
Egypt. France.
Nope. Got to get them boys some kilts because Scotland's first minister has...
Get them boys some kilts.
We got to get them boys some kilts because he's saying that he wants to take some refugees in Scotland.
There are currently 1 million people displaced within Gaza. So therefore, I'm calling today on the international community to commit to a worldwide refugee program for the people of Gaza. I'm calling on the UK government to take 2 urgent steps. Firstly, they should immediately begin work on the creation of a refugee resettlement scheme for those in Gaza who want to and, of course, are able to leave. And when they do so, Scotland is willing to be the first country in the UK to offer safety and sanctuary to those who are caught up in these terrible attacks.
Yeah, lads.
It's a great accent.
Well, and it's weird because his name is Humza Yousaf. So, you look at the guy, he looks of Middle Eastern descent.
Oh, really?
I'm not an Ancestry.com kind of guy, but I'm looking at him. You don't expect that rich Scotland accent,
Yeah. Interesting.
But, he has it.
So, therefore, I'm calling today on the international community.
We need a worldwide community for kilt donations for the refugees to come to Scotland, lass. Oh, yes. So, all right, Scotland stepped up. We figured that one out. It's 10:39, and that problem solved.
Woo.
Scotland.
Way to go, Scotland.
We're taking one for the team.
Coming in clutch.
Taking one for the team. Scotland, boys. All right, so that's one problem solved.
1354 says, so Sean Connery's taking in the refugees?
It's literally, they're going to set up a camp in Sean Connery's backyard. So that's, hey, we solved that problem. I'm glad we got that out of the way. Scotland. Did not have that on my bingo card.
No,
for
definitely not.
2023. That's what's happening. Scotland.
Cool.
So we're probably still going to have them sneaking across our border, though. You know, the
somehow, some way.
They're going to be like, Scotland's too racist. Like, all these dudes are wearing dresses. It's like, they're kilt slash. So we probably will still have some refugees from Gaza sneaking across our border. Our border is still wide open. Everybody paying attention to that? I know a lot of these stories are getting memory hold over the past couple weeks with everything popping off in Israel versus Hamas. It seems like our own news stories are going completely unnoticed. But we still have a wide open border, just in case you're keeping score at home. Wide open. Griff Jenkins of Fox News was doing a report live from the border. And he talked to one Texas farmer about what she's seeing.
We talked to a local pecan farmer named Magali Urbina. She sees migrants every day, sometimes Middle Easterners that frighten her. She talked to the Border Patrol chief in this sector. Here's what she had to say. Listen.
He said that they were very concerned. He believes that it's just a matter of time, or it's inevitable that something happened. Seeing people come into the country that we know nothing about. That concern's always been with me because of what I've seen.
And she's seen a lot. She says she sees them every day coming across the border, and that Border Patrol tells her it's a matter of time before something happens. A matter of time. You know, we talked earlier in the show about Sarah Huckabee Sanders kicking China out of Arkansas and saying you're going to have to sell the land or we're going to figure out a way to take it from you. And I wonder if we could do the same thing in some of these Texas suburbs like Colony Ridge, where they're selling homes to non-U.S. citizens and illegal aliens, giving them direct from the builder loans, so they don't have to have any of the paperwork for their mortgages or anything like that. Can we do some of that? Could Greg Abbott do some of that in Texas? Because the border is a mess. And you can't deny that you're having people come over the border that have links to terrorism. I mean, they're quite literally catching people on the terror watch list. Over 100 it stands now. And that's just who they caught. That's just who they caught. And they're coming from all over the place. From everywhere.
And you can't overstate how concerned border officials are at the number of migrants that are coming from countries with ties to terrorism. And as you noted, Fox News confirming that since the fiscal year began, October 1st, more than 16,000 known gotaways entered. They were observed and seen, not brought into custody. We don't know who they are, where they're from, or why they're here. Let's take a look, a bird's eye view from the drone up in the sky. You can see in just this sector alone, in just this area, Sandra, since I've been on the ground since last week, they have encountered and apprehended 6 Iranians, 3 Lebanese, 1 migrant from China, 1 from Egypt, and 1 from Saudi Arabia. Just in this area, just since I've been here. But because the agents are so busy processing the migrants that are giving themselves up, it's those known gotaways that have more than 60 miles of this wide open.
Wide open. Hey, let's save that one for the hotkeys too. So whenever we talk about the border, we can just do
wide open. We talked to a local
wide open.
Wide open. We talked to
and in Eagle Pass, Texas, they are reporting 11 Middle Eastern migrants found in Texas border sector in 1 week. 1 week. This wasn't months ago. This was from October 8th to October 14th. Border Patrol agents, like you just heard, apprehended 6 Iranian nationals, 3 Lebanese nationals, an Egyptian national, a Saudi Arabian national. They all made landfall on the Texas banks of the Rio Grande. The source reporting this, not authorized to speak to the media. No, they won't tell the media that openly. But the guys on the ground are blowing the whistle, and they told Breitbart Texas that the migrants were, you guessed it, single adult males, considered special interest aliens who arrived from countries subject to travel warnings by the U.S. State Department due to terrorism. The source says, absent any significant intelligence indicating the migrants pose a known threat to the United States, they will be released into the U.S. to pursue asylum claims. Does that make you feel warm and fuzzy inside? The source continued that the encounter of special interest migrants as tensions rise in the Middle East due to the recent Hamas attacks in Israel is alarming. Things are developing so quickly in that region, and migrants are coming from that area, continuing to arrive at the southern border, and it presents an intelligence challenge for us, the source told Breitbart, Texas. According to the source, if the migrants are known or suspected terrorists, based on a listing maintained by the FBI at the Terrorist Screening Center, the lack of diplomatic relations with some of the special interest countries make the return of the migrants difficult, if not impossible. Oh, so we're not even on good terms, so we can't send them back. Also, I wonder how that list from the FBI looks of known or suspected terrorists when we know that the FBI targets MAGA extremists as domestic terrorists. Yeah, you and I are probably on that list as well. Interesting, man. According to a 2019 Department of Homeland Security fact sheet, the term special interest alien is defined as follows: a non-U.S. person who's based on an analysis of travel patterns potentially poses a national security risk to the United States or its interests. Often such individuals or groups are employing travel patterns known or evaluated to possibly have a nexus to terrorism. So that's who's coming across our border. It's wild. But, some of these people are going across the border and they look around and they look at the current state of America and they say, you know what? I actually want to go back. And that actually happened. One disillusioned Venezuelan migrant is being reported as wanting to go home. Yeah, he got to America. He looked around and said, yeah, actually, I'll take Venezuela. This is not a joke. Not a joke, as Joe Biden would say.
Natural fact. Dang, that's harsh.
San Antonio, Texas, from Breitbart. Outside San Antonio's non-government center, welcome center for migrants. Breitbart, Texas, interviewed Luis Gomez, a Venezuelan migrant who says he just wants to go home. Yep. He's being forced out of a shelter. He's looking around the U.S. and he's like, it's not the move. Gomez told Breitbart, Texas, that what he has found thus far is not what he expected. Well, you didn't expect zombie cities with fentanyl users in tents everywhere? Been watching too much movies, kids. Try Scotland. Gomez explained he and many other Venezuelans come to the United States for economic reasons. As to whether he made a deliberate declaration of asylum or claimed a credible fear when apprehended, Gomez said immigration authorities at the border never asked. When asked what his message to others in Venezuela hoping to make the journey to the United States, Gomez says if you have someone to receive you, come. If not, don't come. It's hard. Gomez now finds himself in a difficult predicament, facing a removal hearing in 2025. So his legal status until such time, he won't be taken into custody by ICE, but it leaves him with no hope that federal authorities will facilitate or fund his return home anytime soon. So he's like, nah, this isn't it. This isn't the move, guys. But since he's got a court date in 2025, the United States isn't paying for his ticket back home. Poor Luis Gomez. He just wanted a better life, and he found cities overrun by migrants and fentanyl zombie blue cities. And sanctuary cities across the country are struggling to deal with this constant arrival of migrants. I mean, look no further than New York City, and you see the city's budgets have been absolutely strained. This is unsustainable. And it's downright dangerous when you think about how many Middle Eastern migrants are coming across that border. Jeez. Where do we go from here? Can we get him a flight to Scotland? Are they only taking Gaza refugees in Scotland? Can we get Venezuela on the list? Is that possible?
That's got to be next.
It's got to be next. Get them. We're gonna need more kilts. Is that they do bagpipes too, right?
I think so.
Let's get them some bagpipes. We should start a GoFundMe for kilts and bagpipes and traditional Scottish wear. All right, 10:50 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Your calls, your texts next at 615-737-9986 is the Chris Hand Show on WTN.
In Israel, $100 billion pledged for humanitarian aid, but not just for Israel. Looks like the House Speaker's race is undergoing a second vote with Jim Jordan being the nominee. We've got major new developments in the Natalie Holloway case. These stories and more at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken Weaver. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You know, we were talking about Scotland saying that they'll take one for the team and they'll open up their borders for Gazan refugees. Thought it was interesting. You know, we got to get them boys some kilts. 9058 texted in and said, wow, Scotland's trying to come up. 1 mil. Isn't that the population there? There's enough room, and what a language barrier. LOL. I hope and pray to see this works. Can't wait for Hamas holes to be talking Scottish. That would be hilarious.
That's quite a sight.
Could you imagine one of those like terrorist videos, but with a Scottish accent?
That changes the vibe a little bit.
Sorry. And then I made the comment with our southern border so open, there's a migrant from Venezuela, Luis Gomez. He says he just wants to go home. This is what he was told America would be like. I say, well, maybe we could send him to Scotland. Maybe he would take Scotland. To which 0978 said, mariachi with bagpipes would be fire. And I said,
Love it.
I said, LOL. And do you know what I found? 0978.
Oh, no, you did not.
I did. Are you ready for this?
Oh, yes, please.
All right. Cut the Slim Shady. And this is mariachi bagpipe for you. Hey. All right, so we're doing a GoFundMe for flights to Scotland and kilts.
Get Gomez over there.
Yeah, we'll get Luis Gomez down there. That'll be perfect. Oh, jeez. We're not a serious country. We're definitely not a serious show. More texts from you, your calls on the way. Plus, I do want to talk about what I got in the mail. I mentioned on the Migos this morning. Got some stuff in the mail for my kids, and it was pretty weird.
Whoa,
pretty weird stuff. So we're going to talk about that after the news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Eleven o'clock on the dot this Wednesday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Drivers, we got a big backup on 24 westbound south of downtown. It's right there at Briley Parkway. A crash is blocking the right lane. That's 24 westbound at Briley Parkway. And Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage.
In Israel, President Biden reaffirming full support for Israel after Hamas terrorists killed at least 1,400 and took 200 others hostages, marking the deadliest attacks on Jews since the Holocaust.
The world watched then, it knew, and the world did nothing. We will not stand by and do nothing again. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever.
The president pledging military and humanitarian aid for Israel and also emergency aid for Gaza. The death toll now topping 3,000 Palestinians. The president says the U.S. was outraged over yesterday's deadly bombing at a hospital in Gaza.
Based on the information we've seen to date, it appears the result of an errant rocket fired by a terrorist group in Gaza.
The U.S. concerned of a broadening conflict with protests breaking out in the West Bank and in Lebanon. Arab leaders also canceling meetings with Biden. The president cautioning Israel not to be consumed by their rage and follow international law.
That's Michelle Franzen reporting. Right now in our nation's capital, the speaker's race. Tennessee 5th District Congressman Andy Ogles telling WTN's Nashville's Morning News there might be more Republican votes against Jim Jordan today than yesterday.
I think the number will actually grow today. I think there's probably going to be somewhere between, say 26 and 32, so maybe 28 no votes for Jim Jordan.
Well, a second vote is getting underway as we speak. And Joran Vandersloot, the main suspect in the 2005 disappearance of Natalie Holloway, pleading guilty today to federal extortion charges related to the Alabama teenager's death and admitted to her mother that he was responsible for her death. The judge accepting the plea agreement said Vandersloot brutally murdered 2 young women who refused his sexual advances, but that his confession in the Holloway case cannot be used against him. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
We really are passionate about our state. It's so beautiful, and we just want people and all Tennesseans to help us keep it that way. We really want to make sure that, our beauty, and from, west to east to even middle Tennessee, we want to make sure it's nice and clean for everyone to enjoy. I like to get people to volunteer and to get out there and keep our world clean, man. Litter's disgusting. No one likes it.
That's right. Yeah, if you ask my wife, I've always said, keep Tennessee beautiful. That's kind of been, I think I found a T-shirt or something a long time ago.
It's that marketing.
Yeah.
Really good job.
It's like,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no sense in throwing your trash out the window or when you're hunting or fishing, leaving the trash there on the bank or whatever. It's not worth it.
Currently, there are 88 million pieces of litter on Tennessee roadways at any given time in this state.
Wow.
And TDOT currently spends $23 million on picking up the litter, educating about the litter.
The Nobody Trashes Tennessee campaign, there's some great videos out there. And I was watching the litter lessons and the show and get to know the Red Plastic Cup. Tell us a bit about the campaign and some of those characters. That's pretty neat.
So Red Plastic Cup, he thinks he's a movie star.
Uh-huh.
He thinks he's just the greatest thing ever. So he started off with a talk show, and then he got a movie. And in our movie, he got, more characters, and we had experts, like water quality expert was Sal, the smallmouth bass.
Yeah.
And his bodyguard is Trash Watch. And if, we can go into Trash Watch a little bit too, but love Trash Watch.
Well, after just a few hours in Israel, Biden has taken the short stairs back up Air Force One. And he's heading home. Quick trip. He'll probably get back to work come November. He's gonna take a couple weeks off after this. Long flight. Sleepy Joe. Went to the Middle East to calm tensions. I don't know how many tensions he calmed. But hopefully it works out. Hey, I did want to talk about, I got this thing in the mail, and it was the Amazon Holiday Guide 2023. And I was excited, I remember as a kid, you get the Sears catalog, and you circle what you want for Christmas, and you're big pumped, right? I was big pumped when I used to get the Sears catalog as a kid, and I thought it was cool when Amazon originally brought these back. But like any good parent, before passing it over to my kids, my wife and I looked through it. And upon looking through this Amazon catalog, I found some pictures that were a little bit disturbing. And it kind of goes along the line of what we've been talking about, the demasculization of men, the punishing of toxic masculinity. And there's just some weird things that I've noticed in this catalog that I want you to be aware of, because undoubtedly one will be sent to your home as well. So let's start with Exhibit A. There appears to be an influencer in some of these pictures who goes by the name Diego. He's a boy, looks 14, 15. He wears a lot of pink and feminized clothes. Now, this picture's it's a little weird, It's a little weird, right? Now, my 9-year-old would see this, and she would probably say, what is that? That's weird, right, Dad? But my 6-year-old might see this and just pass by and internalize it subliminally and think that that's okay. And you know what? You want to wear pink? That's fine. I have a pink shirt for Easter. I get it. But then I'll point out another picture that I found of Diago in this Amazon holiday gift guide. This picture of Diago, he's wearing a skirt and a belly shirt. He's wearing a skirt and a belly shirt, and eye makeup and eyeshadow. Doesn't this feel like it's a little bit of like sexualization of children? Do you think that this is appropriate for kids to be wearing? I was thrown off by this. It made me feel uncomfortable. On the flip side is a female teenager of some sort who's rocking a new trend of the bra on the outside of the shirt. Now, I often comment on, keeping an eye out for your kids and being at the forefront of this stuff. There's another picture in the catalog of Diego putting on makeup in the bathroom mirror with the girls. Just hanging in the girls' room. I just wanted to point that out for you in case you're a parent and you think something innocent like the Amazon holiday gift guide is just easy enough to hand over to your kids. Like it's easy to avoid the TV stuff. It's easy to avoid the weird shows to a certain extent if you're vigilant. But I think that it's important to point out this is getting mailed to your home and they don't expect you to do a check on that stuff. And they're pushing this feminization of men. They're just mailing it to your house. They're mailing it right to your house. So I just want you to be aware of this. I posted the pictures on my Twitter at Chris Hand on Air. Oh, Max back. He was on the phone.
Sorry.
I was telling everybody about the new Travis Kelce clothing line they're advertising in the Amazon catalog.
No, you showed me this and you said that. I was just like, oh, okay. That's weird. Yeah.
So this morning I made a joke to Mac. I said, hey, did you see the new Travis Kelce line of clothing in the Amazon catalog? So
but
brave.
I did not realize that was an actual real catalog marketed for children.
For children. I mean, there's stuffed animals on the cover.
Yep. Lure you in.
Like, you would think that this is okay for kids, right? Hey, go circle what you want.
Yeah, let's get some stuff. Yeah.
Like, we used to do that, right? Did you get a Sharpie? You go circle the stuff you want in the catalog?
I want this, yeah.
Did you ever see teenage boys in belly shirts and skirts in your catalogs growing up?
No, and I think I would have been kind of freaked out.
That's where I'm at.
Or I at least would have had questions, yeah.
And I think, like, subliminally, they want young kids to internalize this as normal. And
this is what people wear.
This is the new normal. Meanwhile, we're staring down the barrel of World War III, and this is who's going to be expected to defend the nation. And, if this boy is 14, 4 short years, Diego here in the belly shirt and skirt is going to be expected to defend the nation. Can we stop the feminization of men? It's crazy. This got mailed to my house. It probably got mailed to your house, too. You need to be vigilant as parents. So what do? Well, first, I check everything that comes in. Like, as much as I can. Check everything. And then look for alternatives, right? Look for alternatives. Like the Daily Wire just put out their new Bent Key. Have you heard of this? The Daily Wire?
No.
So Bent Key is Daily Wire's been promising for a long time that they were going to offer children's programming.
Yeah.
And they have delivered. It's a new streaming app called Bent Key. If you're already a Daily Wire subscriber, you just use your same login and you're in. But it's non-woke kids shows with good values, good American lessons, good learning stuff. It's safe.
Like new shows? They're making shows?
All brand new content.
Cool.
And like, there's something about that discovery process for a kid going and finding a show that you want. Search. You remember we used to search channel surf. Remember channel surfing?
Oh yeah.
Kids can't do channel surfing anymore.
It's not a thing.
And then even more so with all the woke stuff that they're pushing on kids, where Transformers has a they them robot in the new series. Rocco's Modern Life, new season on Netflix, has a transgender character. Paw Patrol, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. The Paw Patrol spinoff has a transgender, non-binary they, them as well. So it's not even safe to let your kids channel surf. It's different now with the streaming platforms, but you want, like, the biggest part of that was always the discovery, right? And finding something that you like yourself. So having a streaming service like Bent Key from Daily Wire, huge, where you can say, go crazy, have fun. PragerU Kids has been doing that for a while as well. I love PragerU Kids, and I highly recommend that if you want that kind of content for your kids, that learning software, that learning programming. PragerU's awesome. And then also with Bent Key, Daily Wire is releasing a non-woke version of Snow White. Did you hear that?
Oh, really?
So while Disney's spending millions to do a woke version of Snow White and her 7 politically correct companions, Daily Wire is counter-programming that with a new Snow White starring Brett Cooper. It's called Snow White and the Evil Queen.
Okay.
That story's public domain, baby. You can't stop them.
Oh, no. Of course not.
So if your kids want to see the new Snow White, get yourself a Bent Key subscription or a Daily Wire login and hit them with the bait and switch. Hey, we're watching the new Snow White tonight. Just play the Daily Wire version instead. That's what I would do.
Maybe the lead actress will actually like the movie and the role that she's portraying.
Oh, my gosh. I mean,
that's the weirdest thing.
Do you remember what she was saying about the movie? I have the audio from her. She's
completely crapping on the whole story.
She has trashed it every step of the way. Listen, this is all right. So I didn't plan on playing this, but I have it. She said the new Snow White. It's not the 1930s anymore. That was her quote. Unbelievable.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Yeah, she's dreaming about being a corporate CEO. She's not dreaming about the prince. She's going to be dreaming about pantsuits. You bigots.
And the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
Launching my campaign.
Launching my campaign.
I mean, she's been drugged through the coals over her comments on Snow White. This is why Disney's losing money. They force that woke propaganda on people. And it's 2023, and we can find alternatives. So instead of watching the pantsuit princess, we'll watch the Daily Wire version of Snow White. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was about to say I actually was looking forward to the new Snow White before I knew what they were doing with it. So it's kind of that's encouraging. That there's actually another new Snow White that I can watch.
That's what I'm saying. Just wait for it, and then hit your kids with the bait and switch. Everybody wants to see the new Snow White. Dad got a copy. Gather around. I got popcorn. And you don't have to worry about woke companions and storylines and subliminal plot themes. It's pretty big. I think this is important. There was a story in the Daily Mail that I thought was interesting. This woman, she says her name is Tracy Chandler Walder, whatever. She's 44. She says she used to work in counterterrorism for the CIA and FBI. She put out one of them Instagram reels. She said, there are 7 things I would never let my kid do. 7 things. She says she has an 8-year-old daughter. This is Tracy's safety tips. Number 1, I do not let my daughter go to sleepaway camp. Yeah, I think that's important. Know your kid. Every kid's different, right? I wouldn't let my daughter go to sleepaway camp. She's 9. Just hard pass. Might miss out on some fun, might miss out on some memories, but you can either wait until you're a little bit older or just whatever. Number 2 on her safety tips. This is when I was like, this next one I was like, oh yeah, she's totally a Fed. Number 2 was I do not keep a gun in my house. Okay. Well, so we just throw number 2 in the trash. Okay. Into the trash it goes. Yep, she worked for the FBI and CIA. Checks out. She said, number 3, I always lock up prescription medication and alcohol. Okay. It's good safety tip, I guess.
Yeah.
Number 4, this one I did actually think was really good. She said, I Google all of my child's teachers and coaches and parents' friends.
Oh.
And she says that with the teachers and the coaches, they are going through background checks, but Google them so that way you know about their social history. What causes do they support? Are they putting the Black Lives Matter Black Square on Instagram? Are they, pro-Palestine and Hamas? Who are these people? She also says, I do not let my daughter walk to and from school. I think if you have an 8-year-old kid, that's just common sense. Says, I do not let her use a public restroom by herself. And I think that's a good tip, too. I mean, we just saw, what was it, just the other day, Target, Old Fort Parkway, the dude from MTSU.
Football. He's a recruiter for the football team.
And what was that guy doing?
Showing his junk.
To little girls.
Yep. He was holding a basket, and the little girl's like, oh, I like that basket. And then he removed the basket, and
check out this basket. Something like that. Terrible. Into the wood chipper. And then she says, I do not let her play unsupervised without an adult present. That one I would like to dig in a little bit more. Like how unsupervised are we talking?
What, like they don't, say that again, they don't let them play?
Unsupervised without an adult present.
Oh. Really?
So like that's where I'm like, what are we talking about here? Like kids upstairs, you downstairs, kids outside, you in the kitchen. Like how?
Where's the line?
What do you mean? Like, I get not letting kids just go wild and ham by themselves, but I think that one's a fine line. I think a lot of this stuff really depends on your kid.
Your kid.
Every kid is different, and I'm going to have different rules for my daughter than I would for my son, and probably different rules for one son than I would for the other son, and one daughter than the other daughter, just depending on who they are, because every kid's going to be different. But some good tips. I mean, listen, when it comes to your kids, you are the only ones that are going to protect them. Nobody else is signing up for that job. Stay vigilant and be on the lookout for the new Travis Kelce collection in the Amazon catalog. What?
Come on.
What's wrong?
Don't link him to that.
You're right. Sorry. Travis Kelce wouldn't support anything like that. He just sticks to wholesome companies like Bud Light and Pfizer, right? He wouldn't go with anything woke, I assure you.
No.
All right, it's 11:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Chris Hand. This is the Chris Hand Show. Hey, if you want to see these Amazon catalog pictures for yourself, you can find me on Twitter. I just tweeted out all the pictures a little while ago at Chris Hand on air. And while you're there, hit the follow button. I will follow back. It's 11:21 on Super Talk.
$1 million. Sorry. $100 billion.
Yeah, that's a new aid package for Ukraine. That's what Biden's going to ask for. You know, how we were talking about my kids earlier. It's like, well, my kids will ask for a lot of things for Christmas. Doesn't mean they're going to get it. But the report is the Biden admin is going to ask Congress for
$100 billion.
for Ukraine and Israel aid. What? 100 billion. With a B. With a B. Yep. President Joe Biden is considering a supplemental request. This is a supplemental request of approximately $100 billion. That would include defense assistance for Israel and Ukraine alongside border security funding and aid to nations in the Indo-Pacific, including Taiwan, according to people familiar with the matter. Biden has pledged support for Israel in the wake of the deadly attack earlier this month by Hamas, a group designated by the U.S. and EU as a terrorist organization, yada, yada, yada. Well, there's been speculation since Hamas attacked Israel that the administration would try to tie funding for Ukraine to Israel. Because, you know, people don't really like Ukraine, don't really support the Ukraine war. And then on the flip side, quite a few Americans support Israel. So they're going to tie them together. That's after House Republicans successfully stripped funding for Ukraine from a short-term government funding bill. That request was only $24 billion compared to the $100 billion that is now being asked to fund both, and reportedly Taiwan. So
4176 says, I know 50 states that can use $100 billion.
Yeah, not kidding. It's crazy. How much money do we need to spend? Wasn't Trump laughed at for asking for $8 billion to build a wall?
Yeah.
Laughed out of the room.
Completely.
Laughed out of the room. How dare you? That's too much.
Idiotic.
Like, that was only in 2016.
That's nuts.
You think about how fast the news and how, like, I feel like the world has sped up. Like, we're getting these news reports, like, so fast and so furious. Like, when's the last time we brought up Bob Menendez, Gold Bar Bob? If we were on, like, 2008 news cycle, that would still be dominating right now.
Big story.
If you missed that story, I don't blame you, the way the news cycle moves, quite honestly. But Bob Menendez, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, he was charged with acting as a foreign. He's going to be charged with acting as a foreign agent. Apparently, he was leaking intel to Egypt, and accepting bribes in the form of gold bars. There's new reports now that today he won't be attending a classified Israel briefing because of those federal charges. Prosecutors charging him with acting as a foreign agent. That happened last week, so he's not attending today's planned classified briefing on Israel. Schumer was asked about Menendez, old Chucky Schumer. This is what he had to say.
Should Senator Menendez be allowed to attend the classified briefing on Israel tomorrow, and you still stand by your position that he should not resign? You're not calling for
He's not going to attend the briefing tomorrow. Yes. I don't get involved in I've had private conversations. I don't get involved in what happened in them on this kind of thing. He's not attending.
How about the corporate
Next.
He's not attending. Next. Can we talk about the corrupt Democrats, please, Chuck?
Next.
All right.
Moving on.
Moving on. John Fetterman tweeted something out that I thought was pretty funny. I don't know if it was him tweeting it out or like the artificial intelligence that they have piped into his Neuralink or whatever they do to get him going.
It's
these
the
days.
clone side of him.
If it was clone Fetterman or original Fetterman. Or did you see the other theory that I think I sent you the thing on Instagram? Somebody's like, Ashton Kutcher's, they're putting makeup on Ashton Kutcher's and he's John Fetterman. Anyway, It was either Ashton Kutcher or artificial intelligence or a clone. But Fetterman from the official account tweeted out, would it be awkward to attend a classified briefing on Israel when you've been accused of being a foreign agent, let's say, for a country like Egypt? Asking for a friend. I don't know. I would ask Swalwell. It's like, I don't know if that's awkward. He knows, right? Is it Fetterman? Judge, he either ran it through spell check or it was the clone. There was no spelling errors on that tweet.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
The updated AI now.
What did we say the other day? It was so funny. I was like, if everybody thinks Fetterman's a clone, like, listen to this. And somebody texted in on the super text line, like, he had a gaffe or he said something dumb.
Yeah, he kind of messed up. Yeah.
Somebody said, well, probably just a really good clone.
Really good clone. It's like, oh, no.
Back on the clone train.
Yep, it's a clone.
11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Ken Weaver's got the latest headlines.
11:30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Still got that problem westbound 24 at Briley Parkway. The right lane is blocked there south of downtown. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. President Biden in Israel today.
Justice must be done. But I caution this while you feel that rage. Don't be consumed by it.
Biden says he's going to ask Congress for a $100 billion aid package with about $10 billion for Israel, the rest for Ukraine. Meanwhile, in Congress, the House is holding a second speaker selection vote with Jim Jordan as the nominee, and it does appear he's going to get fewer Republican votes than he did yesterday. Crime and punishment, the prime suspect in the disappearance of Natalie Holloway has admitted he killed her. In a brief statement in court, Joran Vandersloot apologized to the family of Holloway and to his own, saying he hopes there's some closure, adding he has given his life to Christ. Vandersloot pleaded guilty to extortion charges related to Holloway's death after she went missing in Aruba back in 2005 and hadn't been seen since. He's considered the prime suspect, but has not been charged with her murder. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year, the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country and you could buy that widget in that country for one clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens, now this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com, paulwinkler.com, and we'll walk you through what we do and see if we can be of help to you, the investor out there that is so often being sold things that they really don't need to be buying.
$11:35 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We got a first-time texter, 9537. He said, 9537 said, "Is this the text line number?"
Yes.
Yes. Banger of a first-time text, 9537.
Bringing the heat.
Yeah, the text line is 615-737-9986. Also, 9694 said, Can you shout out my husband? We're in the truck now. He's bummed he missed part of your show. Show starts at 9. Show starts at 9.
Come on, 9694.
His name is John, and I'm sure you know his last four, 4103. What's up, John?
John.
Shout out to John. Show starts at 9, John.
Get a little more timely there, John. Okay.
Show starts at 9, John.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening, John.
We
but
appreciate
again,
it. John is John's solid. At least I didn't say, is this the text line number? So funny. Hey, I did get a message on Twitter. Make sure you're following me at Chris Hand on Air. My friend Aaron sent me a message, said, "Hey, thanks a ton for the Amazon catalog heads up." Yeah, of course. If you missed it, find it on my Twitter. There's some weird stuff in the new Amazon catalog. But on my Twitter at Chris Hand on Air, I posted the pictures. You can check it out. We don't have to rehash it. But Erin texted us. She said she's happy to report that the Walmart catalog seems safe. Couple of weird dolls and a goofy dressed Ken doll that she said gave her Travis Kelce vibes.
Come on.
But that was about it. So nothing.
Come on, man.
Nothing strange to report.
Dang it.
Yeah, I feel you. I don't know. Travis Kelce vibes are too much for me. We need more Gronk vibes.
Oh my gosh. Please.
Yeah. Oh, Larry said first time texter. What's the text number? 50,
sure, Larry.
5410 said John must be Todd, the crazy mailman's brother. Show starts at 9.
Show starts at 9, Todd. Come on.
Oh, I love you guys.
Oh, it's the best.
Ray
text line's the best.
Ray says Travis Kelce is trash, just like Taylor Swift.
On the field, he's not Ray, but
any comment, Mac?
On the field, he's not Ray. I won't speak to the off the field. Silence speaks volumes.
Yes. I go full cavuto on that one. Yes. All right. Oh, 2889. Just we can't read that on the air. 2889.
No, we can't.
Oh, 467. Are you calling me Canadian or Travis Kelce Canadian? All right. Had enough of you texters.
And that's it. Chris is done. He's exiting the app. Okay, it's not fun anymore.
All right. I've had enough of you guys.
He's like, we can make fun of Mac, but don't,
Listen, I draw the line at making fun of me. I'm just kidding, but I'm not Canadian, so
don't make that joke.
Let the record state. And while I do enjoy poutine,
oh yeah,
and Pierre Pialver, not Canadian.
That was a great video.
It was money. If you missed that, I'll retweet that. The Canadian Trump just roasts a liberal reporter.
While just munching on an apple.
Munching on an apple.
Could not care less.
Absolutely based. All right. I mentioned this earlier in the show, and I do think that this is worth repeating. This to me is easily one of the biggest news stories of the day, if not the month, if not the year. Okay? Sarah Huckabee Sanders has essentially kicked China out of Arkansas. She has put on notice a company that owns land in Arkansas, that the company happens to be owned by the CCP, and she said, you can either sell it or we're going to figure out a way to take it from you, but you're not allowed here. She looked at China and then looked at Arkansas, looked back at China and says, F off, we're full. And to that I say it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. This is 2 minutes of audio. I don't usually like to play this much audio, but I do think that this is so important, and we need to pressure our elected officials to step up and make this happen.
I'm announcing that Syngenta, a Chinese state-owned agrochemical company, must give up its land holdings in Arkansas. Syngenta owns 160 acres in northeast Arkansas, which it uses primarily for seed research. The company that owns Syngenta, ChemChina, is also on the Department of Defense's list of Chinese military companies posing a clear threat to our state. Seeds are technology. Chinese state-owned corporations filter that technology back to their homeland, stealing American research and telling our enemies how to target American farms. That is a clear threat to our national security and to our great farmers, especially since the Chinese government enacted a law in 2017 requiring Chinese citizens abroad to collaborate with their country's security officials on intelligence work with no questions asked. This isn't about where you're from. We welcome Chinese Americans, Russian Americans, and anyone else who's given up foreign oppression for American freedom. This is about where your loyalties lie.
Amen.
We simply cannot trust those who pledge allegiance to a hostile foreign power.
Hallelujah.
That's why I signed Act 525, sponsored by Representative McKenzie and Senator Boyd, to ban Chinese and Russian-made drones. And it's why I signed Act 758, sponsored by Representative McAlinden and Senator Stubblefield, banning public contracts with the CCP. We will make sure that every company operating in Arkansas is a friend to Arkansas and good to hardworking Arkansans. Secretary Ward has already notified Syngenta about this decision. If they refuse to sell, our Attorney General can move forward with legal proceedings and force them to get out of our state.
Yep.
Arkansas will always protect our farmers and our national security interest.
Get out. Get out, get out, get out. Sarah Huckabee Sanders to Chinese companies. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, one of the things that she said, which I don't want to lose in that long piece of audio, is agricultural warfare, agro-terrorism. And that made me jump down a rabbit hole last night. It did. Because honestly, it's not something I had thought of before. But it makes a lot of sense. And it's happened. There's a long history of agro-terrorism, agricultural warfare. During World War I, German saboteurs made horses sick when they were shipped from U.S. ports to the British and French armies. And when the animals arrived in Europe, they were unfit for service. I mean, you fast forward to the 50s and 60s, and the United States and Canada were secretly developing anti-livestock agents such as rinderpest. They also, the United States also produced and stockpiled 3 anti-crop agents: stem rust of wheat, stem rust of rye, and rice blast. From the early 60s through the early 90s, the Soviet Union's anti-agricultural warfare program employed some 10,000 people and targeted poultry, livestock, and crops. During the Iran-Iraq War of the 80s, Saddam Hussein's Iraq developed a variety of fungal agents to attack Iran's staple food crops. This is a real thing. There's evidence to it. And I just say to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, amen for being at the forefront of this. Amen for looking out for our farmers and looking out for America in general and setting precedent to get rid of Chinese-owned agriculture lands and just land in general in America. They shouldn't be owning land. And I think that it's amazing that she's going after them. I really do. I was going to say cojones, but just the grit for her to actually take a stand and go after this. Unbelievable. Is there any other politician standing up to China in this kind of a way?
Yeah, that's setting a new precedent.
It really is.
Seriously.
But there will be ripple effects out of this. I mean, if you think we're headed towards World War III, kicking out China out of America is definitely an act of aggression, right? Are we on the brink of World War III? I had a long segment on this earlier yesterday, and I do think we're on the brink of World War III. I think that it's hard to not say we're on the brink of World War III. I think that if World War III happens, we're going to have a draft. I just think we're going to. If you Google draft in America, you'll get a list of about 100 articles saying it'll never happen, which just leads me to believe it'll happen. I mean, at the height of COVID, you could Google, is the virus from Wuhan? And you'd have 100 articles saying it's not from Wuhan. Well, spoiler alert. But are we on the brink of World War III? Well, a guy much smarter than me by the name of Professor Bronk, a senior research fellow at London's Royal United Service Institute, said that he believes so. And he also added that he thinks Russia and China have been relatively restrained so far. But he says if Iran gets involved in this Israeli-Hamas conflict, we're going to see rapid escalation because Russia might jump in at that point if Iran gets involved. And then the war could include the U.S. if Iran or its proxies attack Israel over the coming weeks. He goes on to say Israel's now bombed areas of southern Gaza where it told Palestinians to flee ahead of expected invasion, killing dozens of people. Violence along Israel's border with Lebanon has also led to concerns over a widening regional conflict that diplomats have been working to prevent. And it comes after historian Niall Ferguson wrote in the Sunday Times that the situation had an unpleasant 1930s feeling. An unpleasant 1930s feeling. Professor Bronk, who specializes in air power and technology, analyzed the situation in Israel and its global context for this Daily Mail article, and he thinks that the ripple effects could be coming. I mean, if we're headed towards a global conflict, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is going on offense by kicking China out. Robin in Murfreesboro, you have a comment on Sarah. What's up? You're on Super Talk.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Sarah Huckabee is my hero.
Amen.
I'm telling you, what is it? I mean, I'm just a commoner, okay? Just a commoner. But I listen and watch all these idiotic people that are supposed to be our representatives. And why aren't they talking about this? Why aren't they doing more like this? I mean, we know the threat of China. I mean, somebody as simple-minded as myself can see the threat of China. And it's been going on for way too long. But kudos.
I'm with you, Robin, and thank you so much for the call. I really appreciate you. I tell you what, I would vote for Sarah Huckabee Sanders for president if she keeps making moves like this. Is there anybody else in the country making these kind of moves? I don't think so.
Also, we got a text about it, just asking about how much Tennessee land is owned by the CCP. So did some research there. 10.7 million acres in Tennessee is open to CCP control. That's 10.7 million too many.
Yeah. Amen. Also to Robin, we've gotten a slew of super texts saying, you are not simple-minded. No, Robin is cutting edge.
Yes.
Robin's paying attention. We'll pay attention to this story too. I think, outside of what's happening globally, as far as America goes, this is the biggest story of the day. Sarah Huckabee Sanders kicking China out of Arkansas. Unbelievable. Great stuff. I love it. It's 11:49 on Super Talk. Matt Murphy's going to come in, tell us what to expect on Murphy Show, which kicks off at noon. He'll be doing that with us next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Does the dysfunction that we've seen in Congress increase the danger in the world?
Yes. Look, this is not your father's Republican Party.
It's not, and thank God. 11:56 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Speaker of the House. The vote is happening now on the floor. Mac, what's the score?
Jordan 198, Jeffries 213, others 22. That's what we got right now.
Matt Murphy joining us in the studio. What do you think about that, Matt?
Well, first off, that clip you played, I think there's a lot of validity in that clip.
This is not your father's Republican Party.
Right, because Joe Biden was good friends with Scott Pelley's father 90 years ago. So he would know. I didn't know Scott Pelley's father was a Republican.
Republican.
Ogles, right. Whatever that means. Ogles, I guess, said this morning on Nashville's Morning News it would get worse before better.
Yeah, friend of the show, friend of the Chris Hand Show, Andy Ogles.
Friend of your show. He was a friend of my show before he's a friend of your show.
Fair enough. Friend of our shows.
Friend of our shows. How
Huge
odd
friend.
is... this is like Bizarro World. I feel like we're in Bizarro World. Like 3 months ago, Hand was friends with the Ogles. Ogles and I on the outs. Now Ogles is like hitting me up. Hey, when can I come on the show? Tomorrow, by the way. You guys are on the outs because he's a poser.
Yeah.
I don't want to say... Wait, whoa. I didn't say that. Andy, no. You, bud.
We're buddies. Friend of the show.
Friend of the shows.
You're a fox.
No, listen, I gave him grief because I felt he led me a certain way, and
if we get Jordan out of the deal, can we have a détente? You think? If we get Jordan,
I don't speak Canadian.
You sir. By the way,
how dare you?
Can I just completely derail the transition here? I never heard the aboot until you brought it up, and now I can't unhear it.
Everybody
I can't unhear it. I never heard it before, and now every time I'm like, man, oh man, he's from Saskatchewan, Winnipeg, Manitoba. You know why I know Winnipeg, Manitoba? You should know this. Now you may be too young.
Is it the Winnipeg Jets?
Winnipeg, Manitoba. I remember that because if there was a Billy Graham crusade on at my house with my grandparents, we were watching it.
Okay.
And there was a long period of time where right at the end, if you wanted to send a donation or if you wanted to get materials, they would invite you to do so. And for some reason, you had to write to so-and-so address in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
We probably had the address there because, and I don't know this because of anything other than random knowledge. It's not because I'm Canadian. To have a show on there, you have to be like produced in Canada. The 51% rule.
See, we're starting to dig deep on this, on the real Canadian.
The Canadian conspiracy.
I'm just doing the old finger point on Super Talk TV.
I work for the Royal Mountie CIA. I'm a plant.
Ooh, Chris Hand, Justin Trudeau plant. More of the Murphy Show coming up.
All right. Hang out with us. Matt Murphy's up next. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.